So if we look broadly at just transition, we're looking at a transformation to a low carbon, more sustainable future, which means transforming our energy systems, but not only. We've got to look at biodiversity, the whole ecosystem, and resilience. When we start to unpack justice, it's about getting the voices of the poor onto the table. We don't make decisions from the top down, but that we really listen. And I'm not sure where the disconnect sits between really hearing the voices of poor people and poor communities and decisions and government policies. Our carbon footprint per person is very high because of coal, because of electricity. Creating renewable energy is going to create jobs. It will build jobs, and there are many studies to show that. The problem is you're not necessarily going to go from a coal miner to a renewable job. There's issues of reskilling, there's where those jobs might be based, might not be in the areas. So there's a lot of what people say trade-offs, and it's complex, but it's doable. In South Africa, we've got to look much more holistically. We've got to look at the vested interests that maintain our economy in a particular way, despite amazing, laudable policies. There's a gap between implementation and the policies that are there in all three spheres of government. So I do believe that the answer is not more coal. I do believe it's a renewable and a sustainable, an efficient future. So we have to plan, and we're not adequately planning. And there are contested voices, there are vested interests. And I think what needs to happen are some of the hard conversations where people actually talk about their losses, and including a mine owner. In South Africa in 94, 36% of the population had access to electricity. It's quite unbelievable. And through initially the Reconstruction Development Program, a program of electrification was rolled out. And it's been an amazing program because today about 87% people have access to electricity. It's not the 100% that was intended by now. The problem is the poor spending a greater proportion of their disposable income on energy, be it electricity, candles, paraffin, etc. We have huge informal settlements where people have moved to cities. Urbanization has grown in the last 20 odd years, and many of them are on land that's not proclaimed for housing, and therefore they don't have access to some of the basic services: water, sewage, electricity, amongst others. And then you bring in the gender factor into that, and particularly in rural areas where the women might travel quite a long way to gather wood, the respiratory cooking with coal in a confined space. So what is the solution? Obviously a better, cleaner world, a cleaner environment, which is important for us, for our children, for future generations, is critical. We're on a destructive pathway right now. But you cannot separate that from poverty and inequality, and unemployment, which is massive in our country. We have to look at them from a holistic perspective. The whole of sub-Saharan Africa, excluding South Africa, uses 81 gigawatts of electricity. I think this study was a few years ago, which was then equal to the whole of Germany. I mean, that's quite a gobsmacking statistic. 600 million of 1.1 billion people don't have access to electricity. Most people, I think it's 80%, are using biomass to cook. So I think those statistics alone tell a story. The answer isn't fossil fuels. The answer is to look at renewable energy and look at what that can do to people's lives. Government has introduced certain things. More people have access to electricity, and there are social grants. It has impacted, but we haven't made the systemic change that we need to make. And when I move myself out of feeling despondent, I'm still doing the work. So I still believe we can, but it requires people working both from the top down and the bottom up, and for people to hold the difficult conversations and be honest and transparent.